Hello, hi. I didn't think I was gonna make another video covering this topic because I was pretty fucking tired after yapping about it for 55 minutes last time. But here the fuck I am. So, actually, hold up. Do you guys want to see my shirt? Trust me, I would have a lot of, I would have a, I know a lot about it. Okay, so moving on. Do you believe me? Yeah, so I didn't think I was going to cover this topic anymore because I was like, I'm tired of the Buck and Eddie situation, the Buck and Eddie problem of this show. But it turns out it can always get worse. I'm not really sure what the show, and by the show I mean the writers and the producers and showrunners, I'm not sure what they're trying to do right now. Sometimes I watch an episode and it just feels like they're intentionally trying to get the show canceled. But they've already been renewed for a season 9, so I'm confused. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably confused. I'm just not sure what they're doing. They have 911 Nashville, which is going to be like a spin-off show. I'm not sure what they're trying to do. Like, I'm not sure if they're trying to gain viewership for that. I don't know what they're doing. But I figured people enjoyed the last video, which, by the way, thank you for all the love on the last video. I'm so grateful, like, genuinely, like, reading people's comments and positivity, like, that shit warms my heart, so thank you guys. To kind of get into it, I titled the last video, Did I Get Queerbaited in the Year 2025? And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna, make the title of this one, I Got Queerbaited in the Year 2025, because I believe that I got queerbaited in the year 2025. I lost chess to a dog. I got queerbaited. So, it's possible they'll put Buck and Eddie together in another season, but at this point in time, I feel like I've been queerbaited, and even if they do put Buck and Eddie together, I'm still gonna feel like I was queerbaited. And I'll go into further detail with that in a minute on why, even if they put them together, I still feel like it's queerbaiting. I feel like I have to be dramatic with my hands. No? Okay. The final episodes of Season 8 of 911 have been released, and I have a lot of things to say, which I didn't think would be possible considering I talked about Buck and Eddie for 40 minutes, but here the fuck I am, talking about it even more. I just feel vindicated. Like, I know it's probably stupid for me to be like, yeah, I caught on and I was queerbaited, and yeah, I feel vindicated because guess what, we were. But I do feel vindicated in a weird way, and people are like, if you get queerbaited in the year 2025, you're stupid, but when you look at the context of what was going on in that show, I don't feel stupid for being queerbaited. I feel a little stupid, but I feel more vindicated because I made that video 3 weeks ago, and I guessed that they weren't going to fix it, and then they just didn't, so I'm not surprised. Speaking of the first part, I'm just going to be basically starting up where we left off. So if you didn't see the first part, I'd recommend starting there because a lot of this is going to make no sense if you don't go over there. So I covered everything up until Buck and Eddie's FaceTimes, but after that, Bobby, the 118's captain, dies, just straight up dies, and Eddie basically has to come back to Los Angeles to go to the funeral. I will go into more detail with the Bobby dying thing. I'm just trying to figure out how to format this video cohesively, so bear with me, I will get to it. Buck picks up Eddie from the airport, and then they reveal that Buck picked him up in a very, like, Disney Channel-esque way where the camera, like, pans to Eddie. They go to the funeral, and then Bobby is buried with his family that he lost in a house fire, which this is where I'm going to go on the Bobby tangent. Bobby's character from the start is kind of set up as this, like, stoic, very level-headed, calm type of guy. But then we get a Bobby Begins-esque type of episode where we kind of learn that Bobby used to be an addict, and that history of, being an addict unintentionally led to his family dying in a fire. And this is very specifically heartbreaking for Bobby's character, as he is the one that accidentally sets the building on fire, and he's a firefighter himself, so this just adds to the whole, being a devastating, heartbreaking thing. Like, it's already bad enough when you're like, oh man, I got my entire family killed, but, like, him being a firefighter himself and accidentally, like, murdering them in a fire, like, that would be my 13th reason. I would be, like, this is why the choice to put Bobby and Athena's characters together at the end of the first season makes great sense narratively. Both characters seemingly feel like they are getting a second chance, as Athena's coming out of a long-term marriage, and after Bobby loses his family, the two of them coming together is like, yes, this is their second chance at a relationship, at life, yada yada yada. This is, one of the many reasons why Bobby's death in Season 8, Episode 15, Lab Rats is fucking ridiculous to me. It's so frustrating. It's so there's a bunch of other reasons, which I'm about to go into. Athena as a character is already somewhat isolated from the main cast because she's the only cop, whereas the 118 is very frequently together. To remove Bobby from the cast leaves a big hole in itself because it leaves the 118 questioning who the captain is going to be, but it also leaves a huge hole because where is Athena's character going to go after this? Like, her children are already grown up, and the house that her and Bobby were building, no longer her dream house because Bobby's not alive to live in it. So it's like, she puts it up on the market at the season 8 finale. It's just like, okay, like, I'm just concerned where this is leaving her character because it's like, it's such a blank slate, and I don't mean to be negative, but the Athena being a cop storyline, like, it can only go so far. Like, is she gonna have more scenes with Hen? Where is she going? Like, there's nothing wrong with having a clean slate for this character, especially after this many seasons, but it's also just like, what? Like, what are we doing? Like, I'm totally down for, something completely new. That's not the problem. I'm just worried it's not going to be handled correctly because not much on this show in this season has been handled correctly. The other thing with the Bobby dying situation of 911 is it wasn't handled well through social media at all. I didn't go into a lot of, like, the social media aspect of, like, the fans of 911 or the, things getting leaked on social media because I haven't been within the 911, like, fandom space up until season 8B came out. So I didn't know a whole lot about how social media was run regarding 911 until literally this half of the season came out. Basically, there were these leaks where they were filming Bobby's funeral in public, and people were just, like, taking pictures of Bobby's turnouts on the back of a fire truck and the casket that Bobby was supposed to be in, and people were like, oh my god, is Bobby dying? Oh my god, are they killing Bobby? Is this someone's coma dream? Like, there were so many questions. And then to make matters worse, these two cast members put, like, I don't know if they intentionally placed these scripts in the background or if it was like, or if they were, like, advised to put scripts in the background that said this, but there were basically these scripts that were like, Bobby's getting buried alive and he's calling 911, and I don't know if this was, like, damage control because they were like, oh, people saw that we filmed Bobby's funeral in public, let's throw them off. Like, I don't know what the idea of putting these scripts out were because these scripts never came to fruition when you watch the rest of the season. With that being said, we pretty much got more of the funeral scene off of people's TikTok lives than the actual fucking show. I don't know. I just find it weird to, like, intentionally make fake scripts and then have your cast members post them in the background and then, like, just throw people off. Like, I get why they did it, but it's also just, like, it's just kind of fucked up. It's also just kind of fucked up after watching how they handled the episode after Bobby dies. I will get back to the Buck and Eddie thing, I promise. This is just gonna take me a minute, because there's a whole lot for me to yap about. I seem discouraged, and truthfully, I am a little discouraged, but we will get back to the Buck and Eddie thing, I promise. The episode following Bobby's death is about a mother who lost her son in a fire. The mother explains to Athena that she believes someone has been raising her son because she saw a boy with the same birthday and birthmark, so she believes that someone started a fire at her house intentionally to kidnap her son. A little insane, right? A little insane, but we've seen weirder things on this show, right? Rebar through the head, living through a tsunami, getting your throat slit, getting shot, getting stabbed again, getting your heart stopped and restart. You know how this show is. Whew, that was a lot. This leads Athena on an investigation to figure out if the boy the mother believes is her son is actually hers or not. And it turns out after a DNA test that the boy is not her son and that her son is dead. But the reason his casket was empty was because the fire burnt his body so bad that there were not enough remains to bury him. You're probably like, the fuck does this have to do with anything? This entire thing is supposed to be this metaphor about how the audience doesn't want to believe that Bobby's dead. This is kind of just this entire thing kind of poking at the audience, being like, hey, you don't want to believe that Bobby's dead, and you're fucking stupid for that. Which it's like, again, in the show where we lived through tsunamis, earthquakes, B-NATOs. Us believing that the captain of the 118 is dead, like, that's the thing that you want to poke fun at us for? Like, okay, like, what the hell, sure. Like, it just feels like a slap in the face to the fans. I've only been watching this show for, like, little over 6 months. Maybe less than that. I've only been watching this show for 6 months. That's crazy. I felt disrespected, and I've only been here for 6 months, so I can only imagine the people that have been here through 8 seasons of this shit, how they probably felt watching this. Like, I can't I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom the disrespect you probably felt if you've been watching this show since the beginning. As I said earlier, Bobby dying also leaves a spot open for who's going to be the next captain at the 118. And the way they handled this also confused me a lot. If you've watched the show, you would assume that Hen is the next up to be captain because she's had the most experience with the 118. She kind of just has the best background for being the captain. But then they go on to basically set up Chimney to be the captain. I would be fine with the choice to make Chimney captain if they could have come up with a better reason for him to be captain. I got some comments that were like, hey, how can this show be queerbaiting if they've had, 2 lesbians in the main cast the entire fucking time since episode 1. I do get what people are saying with that. I totally do. And I'm not here to try to change your mind. That's not what it's about, Like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm talking about the fucking wee wee woo woo pee pee poo poo show. So you can think whatever you want to think. If you want my general opinions on Hen and Karen as characters, love them. Do I wish the cheating thing happened? No. But if I move past that and look past that and pretend that didn't happen, then I love Hen and Karen. But if you want my general opinion on how can the show be queerbaiting if they have 2 lesbians in their main cast, I think they're queerbaiting because Hen and Karen aren't the only characters on the show. Like, I think they're able to queerbait with the other characters. I didn't know that was a controversial opinion. Like, I can just speak on my experience, and my experience only, because that's all I got. True. That's all I got. That's all I got.
This is all I got. This is all I got.
I feel like intentionally leading your audience to believe you're going to put 2 characters together is baiting, and I feel like if those 2 characters happen to be men, which in Buck and Eddie's case, they both are men, then it happens to be queer baiting, and that's just going to be my opinion on it. I don't feel it's my place to speak on lesbian or sapphic characters, as I'm not a lesbian. I'm a bisexual, I'm a queer man, like, this is all I got.
This is all I got.
I feel like it's especially not my place to talk on the experience of queer women of color. So that's why I don't talk much about Hen and Karen. But love their relationship, love their dynamic, love their son, love the adoption storyline that's currently going on, love a lot of their plot lines. That's not the problem. The problem is, this is going to be hard for me to explain, but I feel like a lot of people get drawn into this show because people are like, oh, well, even if Buck and Eddie aren't together, there's other queer characters. And truth be told, they don't handle the other queer characters' stories that well either. I saw this tweet. I don't remember who it was, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it, but someone was like, how is 911 queerbaiting if they have 2 lesbian characters? And someone responded to it by saying, well, the lesbian's arc of the season got wrapped up in 10 seconds in a montage at the end of the season. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the queer arcs got sidelined this season for Bobby's death, which is understandable because it's a main character dying for the first time in 8 seasons. But, like, I don't understand how anyone would really be happy with what the show is doing right now. This video seems so negative. This video seems so fucking negative in comparison to the one I made. But, like, I don't know, bro. When I used the word queerbaiting in the last video, people immediately started comparing Buck and Eddie to Dean and Castiel from Supernatural, which I can definitely see some parallels and similarities there, don't get me wrong. And the thing about that is almost nobody ever claims that Supernatural didn't queerbait, unless you're like a homophobic type of person. Like, then maybe you're like, they were never gay. They were never gay. No, I don't believe that.
I don't believe that.
I don't know, but, the vast majority of people look at Supernatural and they're like, yeah, that was queerbaiting. Which, if you haven't watched Supernatural, I'm just gonna briefly explain this to you. Dean and Castiel is kind of like the queerbait of the century. I personally wasn't. I like Supernatural for, like, other reasons. I was into the first few seasons, and I watched a lot of Supernatural before it ended. I kind of knew. I got to a certain point where it's like people have said, like, getting queerbaited is like losing chess to a dog, Like, I felt that way about Supernatural. And 911, I thought was going to be different. I don't know why I thought it was going to be different, and maybe it will be different. I thought it would be different because we have queer characters in the main cast. I figured, hey, they're not afraid to put queer characters in this show, but I was fucking stupid. I was fucking stupid, and that's okay. But basically, in Supernatural, Castiel has this scene at the end of season 15, which is their last season, where he confesses to Dean that he loves him.
I love you.
You can take this scene either platonically or romantically, but then Castiel gets sent to gay turbo hell in a very bury your gaze fashion, which if you don't know what bury your gaze is, it's when a storyline has a queer character come out and then kills them off. Bury your gaze. It's a trope that is real and true. You could argue that Supernatural didn't queerbait because now one of these characters is written as queer after seasons of not labeling it, and the other character is there, not explicitly saying anything to confirm nor deny, just making a face that sits on the line of platonic and romantic. But you won't argue that Supernatural didn't queerbait because we both fucking know that they did. And regardless of if they did put Dean and Castiel together at the last fucking frame of the show, or, you know, gave Castiel a blurry husband or some shit, we all would have been like, this is shit. This is fucking ass. This fucking blows. It wouldn't have been the queer slow burn that everyone was dying for. It would have been queerbaiting because they had 10 seasons to put them together and then they didn't until the last frame. And that's how I feel about Buck and Eddie. If they wait and they keep waiting and they keep waiting, you're just getting queerbaited and queerbaited and queerbaited. Because after the last season is just insane. This is insane. I'm not here to say whether or not the Supernatural or 911 queerbaiting, whether one is better or worse. I'm not here to choose or decide. That's besides the point. I'm just saying no one questions if Supernatural queerbaited and 911 is doing the same fucking thing. To shift back into the Buck and Eddie conversation, I need to go back to the whole Eddie coming back from Texas thing. Eddie comes back for Bobby's funeral, and the writers do basically anything they can to backtrack any plot lines they had with Buck and Eddie this season. Basically, we get this scene between Hen, Karen, and Eddie where Eddie seems to be worrying about how much Buck is worrying about everyone else, and then in the next scene between Buck and Eddie implies that Buck is selfish. Does this make sense to you? Does this make sense to you? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, they just really needed to, like, vent to each other, and that's why they were egging each other on to, like, have an argument. And it's like, I just feel like the writers took one scene and just were like, I'm gonna be as inconsistent as I can. I want to love the Buck and Eddie kitchen scene so bad. I love the way it's shot, like Anna and Eddie's breakup scene with the sort of handheld shaky camera shots. I think the acting in this scene is probably some of the best we've gotten from Ryan Guzman in his entire run on the show, especially when you consider some of his other emotional scenes that are supposed to be moving. After Eddie's plotline with Christopher getting sidelined for us to watch him be an Uber driver for 6 entire minutes in an episode, mind you, Eddie's Uber driver plotline was about as long as Bobby's entire funeral scene. I was just happy to see him get to actually express emotion in a scene. If I can ignore that this fight makes no sense because they just said that Buck has been checking in on everyone, and then in the next scene, apparently he just is fucking selfish, then I love this scene. Then I love it. You know, from Buck and Eddie arguing over who got the groceries to getting an on-screen Eddie reaction to Bobby's death, I started thinking that maybe they'll finally find a way to tie up this storyline that they obviously have acknowledged by saying, hey, maybe Buck has feelings for Eddie, and maybe Eddie isn't actually straight. In the moment that I watched this, I was like, we're taking the time to, like, look at Buck and Eddie's characters, but now they're just, like, fucking yelling at each other, and we're getting angst, and I'm like, I kind of like it. When Eddie wrote left for the airport on, like, the little note and left it on the couch, and it directly paralleled to when Shannon left Eddie and left a note that was like, yeah, I need some space, I fucking loved it. When Eddie decided to bring Christopher back from Texas as a way to apologize to Buck, I thought maybe this seems like a little bit of a plot device to get Eddie and Christopher back in LA, but I'm just happy that they're back in LA. I thought, hey, maybe we're getting Buck and Eddie as roommates. And you know what? Maybe that would be fun. When Eddie's Aunt Peppa said our Eddie to Buck, I thought, how interesting that someone blood related to Eddie would use the word our. And then I thought, man, Twitter is going to be in flames next week. Like, we're going to need some hot firefighters to put the flames out when Buck and Eddie don't interact in the next episode. And that's how simultaneously predictable and unpredictable this writing has gotten. Because I had already been disappointed with the way they handled Bobby's death, I figured they were going to fuck up the writing with the Buck and Eddie situation. I already knew. I said it in my last video. I don't know how the writers are going to fix this, and I don't expect them to. And that was until what I'm going to personally call the great 911 Season 8 PR damage control of 2025. Imagine you're me. I know that's going to be hard because you're not me, but imagine you're me and you're not that excited for the 911 season finale, and then multiple cast members are going out and doing interviews, and during these interviews there are many times the Buck and Eddie situation is getting called out by these interviewers. It starts with a podcast where Oliver Stark, the guy that plays Buck, says that the original Buck and Eddie kitchen scene, you know, the one with the whole you want to go for the title, he calls that scene gay. He calls it not just gay, but super gay.
Eddie smirks and sips his beer. End scene.
Yeah,
Now,
that was super gay.
yeah. So in that moment, freaking gay.
It was.
And he knows what's up, because that was super gay. And then, like the same fucking day, we get Ryan Guzman, the guy that plays Eddie, saying that Buck and Eddie's characters are like brothers. Again, I put this in the last video. I think I put it in text. I have two brothers, trust me. Not brotherly. A little bit strange, right? But not the first time Ryan Guzman has said something like that, so I wasn't surprised. Then we get a joint Oliver and Ryan interview where they ask, why are people obsessed with your characters? And then Oliver answers, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but basically that Buck and Eddie have this relationship where they stick together through thick and thin, and he thinks that that resonates with people. Then later, a clip gets posted of the same interview where they're asked the same question, and he answers that Buck takes on kind of the co-parenting role with Christopher, and that's probably also what makes, you know, their dynamic so enjoyable. In the same interview, Ryan Guzman says that when he originally signed on for the show, he was supposed to play the love interest of Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, and then he says, direct quote, "Now you're my love interest?"
That too. Now you're my love interest.
What the fuck else could that possibly mean? I know that this video is getting insane. I know that I seem insane because it's like why are you this passionate about queerbaiting? And I'll explain later, I guess. Literally, what else could that have possibly meant? What else? I feel like an insane person. Again, I feel like an insane person, and you know what? It's okay. Then we got the BuzzFeed thirst tweet interview, which some of the tweets weren't even thirst tweets. They were just like talking about Buck and Eddie's chemistry. There was also this video that got released of Oliver Stark ranking moments between Buck and Eddie's characters. And after all of this, I thought to myself, there's no way. There's no way they put out all of this PR in this promo just to do nothing for the finale, right? Wrong. The season 8 finale only has basically this one scene between Buck and Eddie where Eddie shows up and he's like, hey, I'm here to save you guys. I'm gonna look real good while doing it. He saves Buck and Ravi, and then Ravi hugs Eddie while Eddie's looking at Buck, which, like, the framing of the scene is a little strange, and then him and Buck fist bump, and it's like, okay, that's all you get. You know, maybe this scene means something, but in the meantime, this just felt like this just felt like Buck and Eddie being Buck and Eddie. If this was meant to be perceived as a romantic scene, they just didn't do it very well, because I just feel like we've had other lingering looks that felt more romantically driven. I don't know. I don't fucking know what they were trying to do with this. It just felt like every other Buck and Eddie moment where they're kind of just staring at each other like something needs to be addressed, and it never will be. And I'm not a huge fan of this finale, this season finale, because the entire time I was watching it, I was saying, how are they going to tie up every loose end that they haven't tied up yet? Why are we still focusing on the cart cop guy? Is Maddie having the baby off screen? And as it fucking turns out, she was having the baby off screen. Not off screen, but in a montage, in like a 5-second montage at the end of the episode. The truth is, maybe the promo, the whole press tour thing was to hype up season 9, which is 4 months away. So I don't feel like it was, but who am I to say that it wasn't? And maybe Buck and Eddie is a relationship that could get explored romantically in season 9. I don't really know. But when the show ignores plotline after plotline after plotline just to slap on a song and make a compilation to tie up the loose ends because they focused on the big emergencies instead of the characters, you are mistaken on why your audience loves your show so much, and I don't even know why I'm surprised, considering you dedicated the same amount of time to Eddie's Uber driving arc as you did to Bobby dying. They end the season with the whole Chimney rant to set him up for captain. Chimney is basically like, none of you guys are leaving because we're here for Bobby's legacy. And that is what makes Eddie decide to stay in Los Angeles. It's because the episode is set up where Buck is like, hey, I want to transfer out of the 118 because it's just a number now, because Bobby is dead, and because Eddie is going back to Texas. They have this whole going away party for Eddie to go back to Texas. So Buck is like, I'm leaving the 118. So Chimney goes on this rant and he's like, none of you guys are leaving. Oh, no. You guys are not leaving the 118. You're staying here. I just don't like how they handled this. I don't like how they wrapped up Eddie's arc, which I don't know why I'm surprised, because they've never done Eddie's, storylines any justice in the history of ever, maybe. This could have been a whole arc for Eddie to be like, hey, I want to stay here. This should have been Eddie making a choice for himself. Eddie, I wish I was your writer so bad. I wish I was your writer so bad. This could have been this moment where Eddie finally chooses something for himself, because, that's kind of what his plotline was about this season. When Buck and Ravi are trapped, this could have been Eddie's moment to be like, yeah, I'm supposed to be with the 118. Like, my home is with Christopher in Los Angeles, maybe being roommates with Buck.
Oh my God, they were roommates.
The thing with Eddie's character, which I could make an entire video about on its own. New video idea? His character is rooted in repression and his inability to make decisions. Eddie joins the army as a young man because he struggles to be a father and a husband. Eddie claims that he joined the army to provide for Shannon and for Christopher, when in reality, it was kind of just him running from the entire scenario of being a husband and a parent. In a later season, he struggles to break up with his girlfriend, even though he knows it isn't going anywhere, until he starts having panic attacks and until Buck says, hey, you can't string her along like this. After said panic attack, he claims that he doesn't panic. When Eddie struggles with mental health, he bottles it up until it explodes, and then Buck has to be the one to pick up the pieces. Eddie deciding to stay in Los Angeles because Chimney tells him to completely derails and ignores what his entire arc this season was supposed to be about. Choosing joy.
I think that you are denying yourself because you don't feel worthy right now.
I don't feel worthy of juice.
Of joy.
It just feels like all of these characters have been left in such a weird place, including Buck, who at the end of the episode, during the compilation scene, of course, because where else would it be, is looking for a new apartment, and then claiming that the place he was staying wasn't really his, which undoes so much character development. Buck has stated before that he didn't really feel like he was a guest in Eddie's home, and beyond that, Buck was subletting Eddie's place. Like, that is as much his place as it is Eddie's right now. I don't care. They consciously made a choice to show that Eddie was sleeping on the couch by leaving the little note that was like, going to the airport. They consciously made a choice to show that he was sleeping on the couch. This fucking show. They don't even wrap this up. They just show that Buck is looking for new apartments, and he's like, yeah, old place had charm. Don't know how I'm going to find a new place that I like as much.
One thing I really liked about my old place was it didn't feel so new. It had character.
And it's like, yeah, of course that place feels like home. Your husband and son are there. Like, Buck is co-parenting Christopher. Eddie's Aunt Peppa talks with Buck more than Eddie this season. And of course, Buck and Eddie are in a queer platonic relationship without the label. Of course, that place is going to feel like his house. At this point, if Maddie can have the baby off screen, in my mind, Buck and Eddie have been fucking nasty this entire time. They've been raw dogging it like nobody's business. Off screen, fucking like crazed rabbits, if you will, and nothing's going to change my mind about that. They set up the breakup between Buck and Tommy, the line about Eddie being competition, Eddie, going to Texas and Buck not being able to handle it like a normal human being, the whole like potential roommates scenario thing, just to remove all that development from every character in season 8. And now Bobby's a baby. To reiterate what I said in the last video, I do love this show. I fucking love this show. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't so bad. I wish I hated this show, because I don't think the writers really know what they're doing anymore. This is going to be a weird tangent to go on too. Just bear with me. It's clear to me when you go on IMDb and then, look at who wrote some of the episodes of this season, that there are writers who are creating better episodes than others. The 3 lowest rated episodes of the season were all co-written by the same person. They also happen to be the only 3 episodes written by that writer this season. I'm not one to like shit on specific writers, but like the stats don't lie, and I'm pretty sure that this writer has written great episodes too. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe they don't exist. Was not a fan of the episodes that this writer had co-written this season. Don't know. Again, I do love this show. It's stupid and campy and stupid. I love the element of found family. I love the ridiculousness of the scenarios the characters are put in and how I know they'll always make it out of them. And then a few episodes manage to undo a whole lot of that. Killing Bobby is a creative decision, for sure. Showrunner Tim Minear claims that it was for realism purposes, but if you want a touch of realism from me, killing a main this far in and queerbaiting as long as you have is the fastest way to make sure that no one watches your fuck-ass Nashville spinoff. Have a great day. Okay, hey, hi, again. I wanted to slap like an actual outro on this because I didn't want to leave this video on such a negative note. I realized that I didn't go into detail with why I think queerbaiting is a huge problem. I feel like it's relatively obvious why queerbaiting is a problem, but I don't think I've ever explained why I get so heated and passionate about it. So, a couple years ago, I was a senior in high school, and my project was about queer representation in media. The way my senior project worked was we did this, like, 10-page paper and, like, made a project with it. I went to, like, a performing arts high school, fucking shocker with the way I talk and behave, right? So we had to make, like, an arts connection, so I made, like, a video, which I'm sure the video is lurking somewhere in some Google Drive. Basically, during my research of looking at queer representation in media, I found like direct links to how positive representation of queer media has a positive impact on both the queer community and cis and straight audiences. And because of that, for me, it's like when I see a show just queerbait instead of just like letting the show have positive gay representation, it pisses me off. There's also like negative, I guess, repercussions of negatively portraying queer characters in media. Like, this is gonna be a shocking thing. This might be shocking, but positive representation equals positivity in the world, and bad representation equals bad things happening in the world. You know, life reflects and imitates art, and art reflects and imitates life. Just generally speaking, if there was better queer representation in media, there would be, you know, positive impacts in day-to-day life, like less homophobia, less transphobia. And you might be like, well, I don't think that, you know, homophobia and transphobia are that bad anymore, but there are still countries where it's illegal to be gay or illegal to be trans. So, you know, people are still being punished with death for being gay and trans. So when I, you know, get heated and passionate about queerbaiting, does it piss me off because it's just like put the characters together? Yes, absolutely. But I also have this underlying knowledge that's like they are baiting and they're making money off of marginalized people. And it's like, it frustrates me so bad because it's like you could positively represent gay people and instead you're just gonna make money off of a community where it's still illegal to be gay in certain countries. Like, it's so infuriating. It's so infuriating to me. This wasn't the way I wanted to end this video, to go on a rant about, you know, gay people still being misrepresented and murdered or killed. That's not the tangent I wanted to go on. It's something that needs to be talked about. To shift into, like, a nicer part of that conversation, the positive queer representation I've seen has made me feel less alone in the world. So it's like, I'm from New England, you know, I live in New England, I'm in one of the safest places I could be as a queer person, so it's like, I'm aware of that privilege. For me, it's just like, I grew up in, you know, a relatively conservative family. I just know that the positive queer representation that I saw as a struggling 13-year-old helped me out a lot, and I'm sure that if there was more queer representation, that other people would also feel less alone in that. So that's why queerbaiting pisses me off. To shift to something even better, if you want a little life update, one of my TikTok mutuals moved in with me a few weeks ago. That's like a crazy sentence to say out loud, and I know that. For a little more context, we've been friends for a pretty long time, and he was from the state of, he was queer in the state of Kentucky, and I saved a queer person from the state of Kentucky. What are you doing, Tim Minear? You're probably saying, what the fuck does this have to do with 911? Well. Sometimes we end up on our occasional doom scroll next to each other, and he likes to take pictures every time I am reading fan fiction or I am watching a 911 edit. So here's a compilation of every time he's caught me watching a 911 edit or reading fan fiction and decided to take a picture of it. Okay, bye.
What happens to a child who isn't loved properly? The answer one might expect